Hello squad. What we're going to be doing today is making my apple pie. All right, so I think it's best to prep the battlefield prior to, right? So you want to get as much of the stuff ready as possible and keep it as neat and tidy as possible during the process. What we want to start with are 7 of these guys. Golden Delicious. Nice big Golden Delicious. Centered, peeled, and cut into about 1-inch chunks. 7 of those bad Johnsons. Stand by. Got him. Bug assault. All right. Next, what we want to have in order, we need, of course, flour. And I've got 2 heaping cups there. I've got sugar, and that's a full cup. We're going to use that in both the apples and some of it in the crust. Brown sugar, full cup. We need cornstarch ready, cinnamon, nutmeg, vanilla, butter. We want a stick and a half for our crust and a stick and a half for our apple. So how much of the butter? All of the butter. That's how much butter we're gonna use. This is the good stuff. This is that Kerrygold, good. No messing around there. Boom. Let's set this aside. I'll have my assistant throw that away in the trash. All right, so the other thing we want about 1/3 of a cup of water, and that's gonna be for our crust. Now what I like to do with the apples is cook those down a bit. I like to get them kind of soft prior to the baking process. Right now we could preheat our oven to 350 degrees, and we'll talk about the baking process here in a minute. So we need cinnamon. We're gonna use all this brown sugar, boom. We're gonna use half of this granulated sugar, about half of it. The other half, I put into my crust, yes I do. Because I like that crust a little, like a cookie, bro, like a cookie. Now, how much cinnamon? And oops, let me go back to the crust. How much salt? About that much salt, boom. All right, we're done with the salt. All right, so we prep that for our crust. Now back to the fixins here, the apple fixins. We need nutmeg and cinnamon. How much? It really depends on taste. So as you are simmering your apples, every once in a while, do a color taste or a color test and a taste test. I know I usually don't measure, I go by color. How brown are the apples? But I want to start with about a full tablespoon and a half of nutmeg. About a full tablespoon and a half. And that's right about there. Boom. Full tablespoon and a half of nutmeg. And I'm going to do the same with the cinnamon. About a full tablespoon and a half of the cinnamon. Boom. So this right now is ready for the simmering process. I'm also going to use some cornstarch in there to kind of thicken it up so when it bakes it doesn't fall apart. So that way the apples itself, the filling stays as a component instead of falling out of the pie crust. And once again, about a tablespoon and a half of that right there. So about the same. Boom. And then I'm gonna put this on a low, very low, and every once in a while just stir it up. So let me get this out of the way. I'm gonna put him in the oven. Excuse me while I disappear from you for a second. All right, that's on low. Now we wanna mix up our crust. Now, this also, I usually don't measure. I kind of go by feel. So I'm guessing it's about 1/3 of a cup of water. The other thing I've done is with the butter, I've set it out so that it's room temperature. Because we don't want it super hard because then it's going to be real hard to mix in. Now, I didn't rehearse this obviously, right? I'm just kind of winging it here. And I've only got one take. So periodically, I will forget something. For instance, I forgot to put the vanilla in my apples. And I'm gonna put a tablespoon and a half of it. Nope, I'm sorry, a teaspoon and a half, sorry, of vanilla in my apples. So I've only got one shot at this, so there's a good chance that I could screw it up. But I am not starting over because I've only got one chance to do this. Once I get it all mixed up, nice, that butter all mixed up nice, the salt and sugar, all that, I'm gonna add my water. And I know where I want mine to be, and I know already I'm gonna need more water. Otherwise, I'm not gonna be able to roll it out. So like I said before, I usually don't measure. I'm going with another third of a cup here. I go by feel, look, texture, and taste, which is how a lot of, bakers and cooks cook. And I'm gonna add just a little bit more. So where are we at now? 2/3, so we're almost, oops, whoop. So adjust that measurement. We're almost at a full cup of water. Yep, that's where I want it. Because this is gonna roll out nice. Let's talk now about the crust. So my crust works in layers. One of the things I like to do is I like to pre-bake my bottom crust a little bit. Just a little bit, like 15 minutes, 350. That way it has a little bit of extra crunch. I'm gonna put that aside. This can get messy, but we want to be generous when we distribute our flour onto our workspace. Now, I have these, fiber type of countertops, nice and smooth, nice and clean, so I could lay my crust out right on this. Some of you might need a cutting board, or you need to think about that workspace prior to. I'm going to use about half of this crust here. I'm just going to pre-flour my hand. I'm going to use about half of it. I just want to do this so it doesn't stick to my hand. And I could go more, because any extra I could just put back in here. That's roughly half. I'm going to go just a little bit more. And I'm going to try to get all the air out of this guy for my bottom crust. Let me set you aside a little bit. Give me some more workspace here. I'm in a squat position here too, so. All right, so we should be about good. Now there's a lot of flour down there right now. I'm going to put some more on top. I'm going to get my pin, flour that guy up a little bit. Let me set you right there for now. Get you out of the way. And I'm going to start rolling this guy out. Now the thickness is kind of up to you. We don't want it super thick because then it won't bake all the way through. We don't want it super thin either because the crust is yummy, bro. We want that crust. And so, and then we want it sort of round and even all the way through. He's looking pretty good. I'm going to measure it. That's fine. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll this guy up onto my rolling pin here. Come on, baby. And set him like that. I'm going to try to push as much of this back in to my 9-inch pie crust pan as possible, leaving no air. Yeah, I like me some crust on my pie, and I like it yummy. Like I said, I want it like a cookie. Because if I'm going to treat myself, I'm going all the way. And I'm going to get my fork, take that residual off of them, and I'm just going to cut the edges like this. all this stuff is going to go back into my top crust. Meanwhile, while I'm doing this, my apples are, simmering down. And after I put this in, I'll check my apples and see if I need to add any nutmeg. And then, so I've got my bottom crust right there. I'm gonna throw him in the oven for about 15 minutes. Yep, rock and roll. We're gonna continue with our top crust and our filling. So I tasted my filling, like I said, so I simmered it down so the apples are kind of pre-cooked, and the spices were pretty good. I added just a little more cinnamon and just a little more nutmeg. Sweetness is on point, it's perfect, it's good to go. So it's ready, and I'm gonna pour it into my pie here as soon as I make the top crust, because I want to get that prepped first. I don't want it sitting in there and getting super soggy before I put it back into the oven. The other thing I did is I prepped my Battlefield again. So I cleaned this up between crusts so there's nothing sticking to it, because there was just a little residual flour and butter sticking to the surface. So I'm going to start this process from scratch. So I cleaned it up nice. I'm going to put that flour down again, and I'm going to start the top crust here. Get my little flour on my hand so I can reach in here and scoop it up without sticking to me. Cool. Get some more flour on there. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to try to get as much air out of this guy as possible. This one looks to be a little bigger than the bottom crust, which is good. Oh, and I took my bottom crust out of the oven, so it's just pre-baked, so it's just a little crispy right now. All right, so put him back down on there. Get a little flour on top of that guy. Flour up my pen and start rolling out. See, I want, in a perfect world, I want this one a little thicker, especially on the edges. Because like I said before, I want some crust with my pie, man. So I love that crust with the pie. Should be good. Let's measure him. Yep, that'll work. All right, now my filling. Can we see this? Yes, we can. It's gonna go in here. This could be a little messy too. Orient you so you can see better. I'm gonna smush this guy down too, quite a bit. I'm gonna smush him, make sure all the juice is evenly distributed. Now, what you wanna do too is make sure that there's apple right up to the edge. All the way around. Apple right up to the edge, right up to the edge. Smush it in there good. Some of this is bound to leak out during the baking process, so you can have that burnt sugar in your oven. It's bound to, it's going to happen. There's no doubt about it. Cool. That looks pretty good right there. We're done with that. Now we're gonna do the same thing here with the top crust. Ever so gingerly. Oh yeah, baby. Looks like it's not gonna stick at all. Come on. Man, I probably shouldn't have had that third cup of coffee this morning. Bring him over. Sweet. All right, now I am gonna make sure there's a lot of edge crust here. I'm gonna bring this stuff up as much as possible. Because I'm a big fan of the edge crust. Hey, you're missing some right there. Let me bring you over there. You join that party. And then my fork, I just had you here. Where'd you go, fork? That'll work. All right, and then same thing, all the way around. You could design it however you'd like. I like the fork edges. Now when we, the last step after we get this done here, so we've got to put a couple holes in the top of the crust. We don't want it to bubble up too much or bubble out. And the design's kind of like branding, you know, it's like branding a cattle or something. It's up to you. Mine, the one that's unique to me, I do a long one, so this is my own brand here. The long one, short, 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 short. So I could pick that guy out in a pie lineup. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put him in the oven for about 35 minutes at 350. All right, squad, so what we got now is we're at the 35-minute bake point. So I'm gonna pull this guy out a little bit. Yeah, it looks pretty good. It leaked just a little bit. The edges are starting to get brown and it's smelling good, bro. Woo! So what I've got here is some egg wash and half and half, or egg. This is one egg and some half and half. And I'm gonna wash the entire top of this and I'm gonna go pretty heavy with it. I'm gonna gloop it on pretty good, all the way around all the sides, all the edges. And after I do this, I've got that granulated sugar right there, and I'm gonna sprinkle some sugar on the top. Now this isn't gonna make it taste much better, but it's gonna make it pop as far as the appearance goes, because it's gonna be super shiny when it's done. It's gonna be golden brown, and it's gonna sparkle. The top of that crust is just gonna sparkle. It's gonna look freaking awesome. Yeah, I'm making a little bit of a mess on the inside of my oven. I'll clean it later. Oh well, you know, you can't make an omelet without cracking some eggs. Blah, 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 humma, humma, woof, woof. So this is looking pretty good. Got all the nooks and crannies done. Yep, one egg is all you need. That's plenty enough. So I got that on there. Some granulated sugar. I'm gonna be careful not to sprinkle this into the oven because this makes a big mess, you know, when it burns. But this is gonna make it pop, and you'll see what I mean. All right, so we'll push that guy in for another, looks like 15 minutes should be good. 15 minutes, boom. Oops, timer. And we'll see how it looks in about 15 minutes. Boom! So I checked on my pie after the 15 minutes and I added 10 minutes. So the total bake time, initially 35 minutes at 350. Pull it out, give it the wash, back in for 25. So I've got 13 seconds left, but I'm gonna go ahead and start pulling this thing out right now. All right, let's see how this guy looks. Let me turn the oven off. Yep, thank you very much. Cancel all that. Oh, baby. Oh, baby. Oh, mama. Holy jamoly. Wow. Oh, man, oh, man, oh, man, oh, man. Oh, let me give you a close look at that thing. All right. So, yep, looks pretty spectacular. All I need now is a windowsill, some vanilla ice cream, and a fork. Oh yeah, rock and roll, baby.